Angie.
Chair and board members, I haven't introduced myself officially today. I'm Deputy Superintendent of Policy, Angie Stallings. So, and Jeff, do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Jeff Van Holten, Policy Advisor.
So just as a reminder, board members, because it's that time of year again, it may seem like session just ended, but it's coming quicker than we think. So your staff, we've all been preparing a number of legislative requests for policy changes. And just as a reminder, we do this every year where staff have ideas for changes to statute. And the first section that we'll talk about, and I'll try to go through this quickly, or if you all just want to pass through it, please feel free to give me a sign. But there's two sections of our legislative prep: the policy changes, which would be what you normally see in a bill, and then we'll do business cases, which are the cases to make fiscal requests for appropriations. So this portion that Jeff and I are going to be presenting are the requests that staff had for policy changes or language changes in bills. And what we do as staff, there are summaries of the request for statutory change on Civic Clerk. If you look, you'll see kind of more of an explanation, and that's all these forms underneath the 2020 General Session requests for statutory changes document. The staff will fill out kind of an idea of what the concept will be like, which sections of code will be amended. So we like to run these by you all before we reach out to legislators and ask them to open a bill file. Then after the legislator opens the bill file and gets a bill file drafted and it's numbered, we will bring those bills back to you for you to take a look at in their final form, and then the board can choose to support it, take no action, or take requests for amendments, etc. But this time right now is an opportunity for us as staff to let you all know the things that we collectively as an agency would be interested in working on with legislators, and you to let us know whether you approve, you don't approve, or you want some variation. So you can see we've got 10 today that we can go through quickly. Some of these are similar to requests from last year, and or we started to talk about them last year, but it was too late in the session. So I'll just quickly go through these, and in the past, Chair, you let me know if you want to have a different process this year. But what we've done in the past is Jeff and I will just go through them and quickly, and you, if you have questions, ask us. But some years we haven't taken individual motions, but just told us or given a motion if you didn't want us to pursue something. And then at the end, you've taken a collective motion to say you're good. So, and I'll let you decide how you want to do that this year.
Well, let's repeat it again for the interest of time, and then if people don't, then we'll pull it off.
Okay. We'll go through these quickly. So the first one is that, as all of you know, Representative Ellison passed a bill this last year, HB 373, which has awarded $16 million for this year, $26 million for next year for mental health supports. One of the requirements in that bill is for LEAs to provide a match. Many LEAs have asked us to ask Representative Ellison to eliminate that match requirement. So we would work with Representative Ellison to eliminate the match requirement from the HB 373 program. Second, you'll remember this last session, Representative Ivory ran a bill, HB 391, that required you all to create a model appropriate behavior policy, which we did, I believe, back in May and June. Our AAGs, as well as risk management and others, would prefer that be titled a code of conduct and not an appropriate behavior policy. So we would go and ask the legislature, probably Representative Ivory, to simply open a bill file to change appropriate behavior policy to code of conduct. It's a pretty simple change. Next, you'll remember at the end of the session last year, we brought forth a recommendation for a section of code, it's that 53G-8-208, to eliminate the requirement for a student's suspension or expulsion to be attached to the student's transcript. Right now, it's statutorily required to be part of their transcript. Many LEAs are not complying with this, and as staff, we agree that if a student is suspended or expelled, that shouldn't stay with them forever. And if LEAs want to put it on the transcript, they can, but not to require it. Okay, go ahead, 4.
Okay, number 4. This one's fairly simple as well. Is combine the statutes for KSEP, OSEP, because they are essentially the same programs. One was the extension of the other when the first one ran out of money and expired. So it would make a lot more sense to have it be one program than 2 separate programs that do the same thing. So that's the first one. We'll combine them to make it one thing. The next one is number 5. So this would be changing the piece of code that currently dictates what you are able to do with the percentage of the liquor sales tax that you collect. Right now, it states that you can use that percentage, I think it's 10% for school lunch. It does not say anything about school breakfast. For those who don't know, we are 51st out of 51 in the nation for free and reduced lunch students participating in breakfast. So we are last in the nation. We would like to not be last in the nation. So we're currently working with a Leadership Institute. We received a grant from No Kid Hungry, and we're trying to implement some policy levers that will allow us to not be 51st and move forward and getting more breakfast options for students who need it. So this would essentially just add the word school breakfast to that section of code so that you would have the power as a board to allocate those funds to both programs. That's the 5th one. The 6th one, in relation to that, if you participate in the school breakfast program, it is a federal program. You get federal reimbursements for every breakfast that you give to a student if they are on free and reduced lunch. We have allowed in statute that after you as a local board have decided over 2 years of review that you do not want to provide breakfast and at all, you no longer have to report that, and you never have to review again providing a breakfast option. So this would actually eliminate that and require that LEAs still report every year. It would not eliminate the ability for them to not participate, but they would still need to be reporting to us every year that they are not. This current data we don't have. And also this data is not extended K through 12. It's just at elementary school level. So we would expand that to be K through 12 as well.
My 7.
You've got
I'm ready
7?
now.
Okay.
Number 7 is related to a bill that's a refile of a bill from last year. So you may remember, and this wasn't something that staff asked for last year. It was Representative Jerry Stevenson, and it was Senate Bill 218, which the bill allowed what used to be called Dibbles, is now called Acadians, to be used not only in grades K through 3, but all the way up to grade 6. So the bill change was so simple. In fact, I was looking at it a moment ago, and I could not find the amendment. You can see it right there. It literally just changed grade 3 to grade 6. And that change would then give LEAs the flexibility to use that diagnostic system, not just for K3, but to use it for students in grades 4, 5, and 6 if they choose. And then you've got the last 3, Jeff.
Okay. Number 8 is exempting the CTE skill certification assessment from the opt-out requirements. The reason for this is there have been students who have been opting out of the assessment for CTE and then finding out after they opted out that they don't get the certification after they've completed the entire course. So this would exempt them from having to provide that so that students, when they sign up for the CTE courses, actually can get their certifications rather than being misled into opting out and then not getting it. Number 9 would be striking the word, not work, that's a typo, private from private matching funds. So this is the after-school program. They've been having an issue getting all of the money awarded to LEAs because of the matching requirement requiring that part of the match be from private funds. And they have federal and local dollars they could bring to the table as a match to then get the rest of the money out the door, but they can't currently do that. So we'd be striking the word private, and it would just be matching funds. And number 10 is adding additional flexibility within the dropout prevention section of code. Right now, if you have, I believe, 10% of your students at risk or 1% that haven't improved over a year, it triggers a requirement that you have to go into a contract with the vendor to then help you with your dropout prevention program. The issue with this is when you have small charters and rural LEAs, one student could literally trigger the requirement. So this has caused a problem with our smaller LEAs that they're being forced then to incur the expense of getting an attorney, going through a procurement process to hire a vendor because of one student. We're going to work on adding flexibility so that we can kind of work with that and find better ways that these smaller LEAs can participate without the onerous side of that. So,
Chair, and one last, related to the R277407 draft now 5 that you just adopted a couple hours earlier, because we amended some definitions that fall under textbook, we would also like the permission to work with probably the Representative Lisenby to open a bill file to change that definition of textbook in the code to match what we just did with the board rule, which then allows LEAs to charge fees for instructional supplies, instructional equipment, et cetera. Once that, in 22-23, remember, LEAs will be required to provide textbooks and instructional materials completely free. But the changes in definition now would allow some differentiation. And so we'd like to just make that consistent with what we just did in the board rule in statute.
So that's a number 11.
That's a number 11, and I
Okay.
apologize. I was going to have that, ask for that to be a motion when we went to finance, and we forgot.
Okay. Board Member Linda Hansen.
Angie, on Senator Elison's bill, the match, I think the reason why we have the match is so the money goes farther, right? So tell me why LEAs, do they have any other reason besides they don't want to pay more to have the match removed? Because I know that's what Representative Elison's going to say, that he wants the money to go farther. He wants them to have buy-in, and he wants the money to go farther.
Did you want to?
Superintendent Dixon, I think, would like to answer.
Okay.
I've been in contact with Representative Elison about this, and this actually happened right after it was passed. You might recall the board supported House Bill 120 that was sponsored by Representative Ward, and it did not have a match in it. And at the time, Representative Elison had a match in there, feeling that that's the only way it would get passed. So as he has reflected on this and spoken with superintendents and others, he is willing to remove the matching requirement. And then if an LEA chose to match that money and wanted to stretch it, they could. So.
Okay. Board Member Belknap.
Thank you, Chair. On number 7, is there going to be a fiscal note required on that for the benchmark?
So it could pass without the fiscal impact, because you can just allow LEAs to use the number of licenses they have for Dibbles or Acadience and just kind of use it for more grades, but maybe not with as many students. I do think Senator Jerry Stevenson did have a fiscal request. So I believe that Jennifer Thronson and team also have a business case associated with it in the next item. And so probably ideally they would go together, but I also think you could pass one without the other. The reality, though, is without the additional appropriation, although the authority would be there, they probably wouldn't have enough licenses for 4 through 6.
I really have 3 more things, but I'll only ask one now and get back in queue.
Okay.
Chair. Okay, the other one's on number 8, on the opt-out for certification. I just would like us to think about this, that some students don't care if they get the certification, and now you've eliminated their opportunity to opt out. So I think we need to consider both sides of this.
and I think that's something we could work into the bill.
Okay. Board Member Scott Hansen.
Yeah, question on 3. This is suspension or expulsions on the transcripts. I understand that's now a requirement. We're not in compliance. We want to get rid of the requirement. But I think you said that the LEAs would have some discretion as to whether to put that on the transcript or not. That sounds like maybe a recipe for discrimination, or at least accusations of discrimination if we went that way. I'd rather see it black and white, or else some really, really clear guidance about when it goes on and when it doesn't.
Sure. So this issue came up. So the student, we have a student data privacy policy group, and there's actually 3 of them. And this original recommendation came out when we were talking about privacy of students. And actually, it was more about when do we get rid of records about discipline and expulsion. And somebody said, the interesting thing is even if we only kept those records for 1 or 3 years, here's this section of code that essentially says it's on your permanent record forever. So I think that staff would be fine also if that's what the board would like, to prohibit it from being attached to the transcript. At the very minimum, though, right now it says an LEA shall put it on the transcript, and we'd just like to delete that. Our recommendation, as well as the Student Data Privacy Policy Group, was to delete that section from the code, but we could also pursue potentially prohibiting that, if that's what the board would like.
Either prohibit or have some level. I mean, if it's an expulsion for certain offenses, then
Yeah.
it can go on. There needs to be some guidance, or else we put it on some administrator's head, and then they'll go after him in court.
That's a good point.
Okay, Board Member Earl?
It's getting just a little bit late, so just a second. Will you scan up for just a minute?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Nope, you're fine. I paused because I was going to look up something. Let me get back. It's right here.
Yeah, that's
Which
all right.
number?
I'm not really sure. Will you-
Okay.
Would you mind?
Which
scanning
one was
back
it
up?
again?
It was the breakfast
School
one.
free, okay. The
Yeah,
breakfast
so
are
what-
5 and 6.
I'm just curious on what was the cost to us?
What was the what?
For the breakfast extension and such, what's the cost to us? Because we're going grade levels and such, so, or is it just all federal?
It's all federal, and then you also have the 10% of the liquor tax that you get to use for
Right.
school lunch, and that pot continues to increase every year as
So
liquor
that would
sales
be,
go up.
that would expand, so.
That
okay.
fund, not
So what
pot.
percent is that currently?
I wouldn't be able to answer that right now, but
Oh,
I could
okay,
find out.
that's fine.
Start taxing the pot.
There was another question I had on that. Oh, I was just going to say, we're ranked 51, but that's not 50, we're not 51% in that our kids are going to school hungry. It's just that we don't have breakfast programs, right? We're talking programs, not children.
We're talking about the participation rate being
In-
offered to free and reduced lunch students, correct?
Participation off, right, okay.
Okay, Superintendent?
To Board Member Earl's point, though, 1 in 5 students, or one in 5 children in our state are considered food insecure, meaning they don't know where their next meal is coming from. So it's highly likely, if you think about that, 20% of our students may be coming to school without breakfast. And then there's another whole percentage of kids that might have breakfast available at their homes, but they're not eating it. So kids are still coming to school hungry, even if they have food at their homes. So there's a lot of data behind to show that a lot of our kiddos are just coming to school hungry and not eating at all.
Yeah, I'm just making sure we understand that that's not, yeah, making sure that data is, so.
Board Member Belknap?
Thank you, Chair. I told my seatmate, drink more, feed children. I think we should get that slogan out. But I would actually like to add 2 pieces to the legislative list. Number 12, I would really like to add, we've talked in the past, I've talked to Representative Elison about the civics test that is required to do graduation, and he's open to having a discussion about either having the civics test or allowing districts to come up with some other way to assess or to allow their kids to do something civically minded, allowing the districts, yes. And so if you, without objection, may we add that to the list tonight?
Without objection, I'm seeing it going on the list. That's somebody's.
Okay, thank you. And then I have a number 13, and Scott's not here to give me great clarity on this, but it was in our Finance Committee, and it's the Rainy Day Fund, that there are some statutes, and I think it's in 53G 7304 that they're colliding. There's like 4 or 5 of them that collide on how much money districts can save for their Rainy Day Fund, and if they should be spending it the next year and then recollecting. Some of them are collecting up to thousands of dollars worth of rainy day fund that it doesn't seem necessary. I just think that we need to maybe clean up the rainy day fund collection.
And it'd be good to, and I want
Scott
to speak
can-
to it too, to support from the finance.
Scott can
it's-
give better detail.
Yeah, there's some betterments that can come on how to manage that. Like Laura said, there's some districts that,
So that would be number 13.
at a time where funds are supposedly very limited and we aren't, dollars are really important to invest in education, but yet these bank accounts are, is humongous a word that you can use in here after 9 o'clock?
Humongous.
Because I just did.
Ginormous.
Ginormous.
Thank
There
you,
go.
Chair.
Okay. Board Member Davis?
I just want to, I don't disagree, but in some cases, I mean, when I was a principal, I inherited kind of a $100,000 bank account. And that was in the days when HSBC was given like 4% interest. I didn't accrue it, but through fundraisers, whatever. So we lived off of the interest. So I didn't have to nickel and dime my parents to death for all of our whatevers. We lived off the supplies, and we were able to save the taxpayers money because we lived off the interest. So sometimes, I don't know if it's right or wrong, that was just the scenario at the time, and banks aren't actually giving as much interest anymore. And I have worked in other schools where I never had that opportunity, but I don't know, just,
There is a percentage they keep,
yeah.
but they need to use it for those kids.
Well, if it's allocated for the kids for that year, they should be used for the kids for that year. This was through, whatever.
Yeah. But these are all just starters, and they get started, and there's more conversation, so we're just starting to push the water to the end of the row, and that's that's what we're doing here with this, and more will add. Over time, they might come off, and the same happens with Deputy Superintendent Jones' presentation, too. Vice Chair Brittany Cummins, you have something to add?
No, I'd just like to move that we approve the current list of legislative priorities.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and move on this current list of legislative priorities. Discussion to that motion. Board Member Davis, are you commenting on this?
Will we have other opportunities?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this, clear to the end. We just add, and this is where a lot of work.
Maybe we should say subject to revision.
Okay. We have a motion. Did you want to?
What,
Well, let's deal with the motion, and you can add to the motion. I've got to stay on these. I got to stay on these Robert rule. We stray, and it costing us. Okay. Discussion. Any further discussion to the motion?
My further discussion, motion, yes.
You can amend.
Another, I'd like to explore, and I don't really know how to. Mike.
Hang on.
Oh.
She turned it off.
I don't even know how to articulate it right now, but if we're going to go this kindergarten route, I would like to explore with the legislature to make it more, I really don't like doing things waiting to be sued. And I would like to explore with the legislature. If the legislature designated a voluntary alternative or full-day kindergarten as part of the elementary school program, then it would be legitimate.
You go, girl.
Well, I just think we ought to at least
So-
ask to do the right thing, and if they don't do it, then we deal with it. But I think just closing our eyes to the reality that it's likely not constitutional is not the right thing. I'd like to explore, and it could be voluntary for LEAs. It wouldn't necessarily be voluntary just for parents. So I'd just like to explore it. I'm not sure how it would look, but I think then I could legitimately say if there is a full-day kindergarten, supplemental kindergarten program, we know it's within the Constitution.
So this can kind of go in the queue, but doesn't, these are lists to start bill files now, so maybe staff, the way I'm getting this, maybe superintendent, if you give me a nod on this, too, that we look at that opportunity option and bring it back the next
should. I mean,
meeting
no,
and
we've got
have a little bit more
that.
discussion on it,
Yes,
so it wouldn't be added to the list. Okay, we have a motion on the table to approve this list. Discussion to that motion, Board Member Earl.
I want to make an amendment too, then. Sorry, it's getting late. I just think our high school needs, that we just passed from this last year, that it needs to include something more than first-year educators. I just think we've got to, the research doesn't show that first-year educators, it's a high, anyways, we put those in our at-risk schools. They need to have some experience. They need to be proven effective to be, I'm all for this. We just need to reward those kids or the teachers that are effective and not put these first-year educators. Anyways, I just think we just look at that.
So can that be another one that you come
Yeah.
back on
Yeah,
to see
something
how
like
we
that.
formulate to open a bill file?
And I'm sorry I'm late in.
Okay, we're fine, but board members, this is what's really important, is these are our meetings. When we get ahead of the game on the legislative process, good things come to public education. So it doesn't take this meeting here to have a conversation with the superintendency to think about something, or you have an idea, there's a proposed betterment. We will be adding to this list as we go on, but we have ideas out here that we want to talk about, and then we have the actual action that
No, I
Um,
mean, make it.
that Board Member or Vice Chair Brittany Cummins made the motion on to get started now. And so those are two different kind of to-do lists. So kind of keep that in mind on this process. And this is, again, yeah? Oh, okay. All right. So this is our process. This is one that we've evolved into. It's been working for us to get ahead of it. So be thinking out there, and as you work with your LEAs, if there's some proposed betterments that we can make and we want to champion and go to get a legislator to act on it, then we bring it to the table. So a lot of work is going to happen over the next couple months that is critical. So kind of keep that in mind. You get some inspiration, write it down so you don't forget it, and we'll get staff kind of work on it. Is that your understanding?
I think Board Member Laramie wants to make a correction.
Yeah, that's not what I meant on kindergarten.
Oh, what did you
I'm-
mean?
What do you mean?
What I meant was to make it, the legislature to establish voluntary a choice by an LEA to have kindergarten as part of its elementary school program.
To be mandatory.
To be
So-
mandatory.
Yes, to be mandatory for that LEA, so that they could say that we could say that the Constitution allows the legislature to add programs, which then can make an elementary school program include kindergarten.
An LEA mandate.
Right.
Oh,
But not for a
compulsory
fee.
kindergarten?
But not for a fee.
Oh, just make kindergarten
Make,
compulsory?
make
Yeah,
it.
compulsory.
Compulsory,
Compulsory.
not
That's the word.
mandatory, right, compulsory. But by LEA choice, so that,
Oh, interesting.
Hold on. Okay, so
so then it would be a program within the elementary school program, I believe, and not a constitutional question.
okay, so we can deal with this following Robert's rules. Or you want to amend the list to include what you just said?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a proposed amendment. And do we have a second?
Second.
Second. You want to speak more to it, or do we have
Well,
enough?
and what I intended to say was explore the possibility. I'm not set on it. I want to see if
Okay,
there's.
then we're not going to put it on the list, and it'll come back to the exploration part of bring us something back, because everything on this list, as we go forward, we're posturing right now to get legislators to take the point and start bill files ASAP. That's what's on this list, not what we might want later. This is what we
I thought
do
that
want to
we were-
start.
I thought they were,
Well, no, so, well, that's what that's,
Otherwise, we're voting on that.
yeah, so you understand we've got two pieces here.
Take it down?
Did you understand that? I don't think is our list understanding it? I'm not looking
Okay.
I'm not looking over my shoulder.
I don't think it's sentient. Not real sure, but.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
All right. Now we're back to the motion.
Okay, one of the explore ideas, that's where I wanted it, under the
All right,
end of the
okay.
list. Yes, thank you.
All right, we're in a better place, right?
We all are, yes.
Okay, Board Member Hanson, Linda Hanson.
Can I just make a comment about the kindergarten thing?
Yeah, but that's not relevant to the motion.
Well, it was
It was
relevant.
before, kind of, but go ahead.
It was relevant before when I put
You've got the mic. You
when
got
I
it.
turned it on. You guys put me on this NASB committee for early learning. The data is very clear on all-day kindergarten. If we are going to improve outcomes for kids, we need to think about having all-day kindergarten mandatory in this state. I'm just telling you, the data is extremely clear. 80% of people kindergartners in this country have kindergarten all day. We have 20%. It is one of our board goals. We need to think about it.
Which, when this comes up, no, I'll just speak to it. And NASB and all these other organizations, they have all this great data. However, this is the state of Utah, and if you look at our history and our parents' participation and willingness to work around kindergarten in the first place, and then also all-day kindergarten, this is a big lift, what you're proposing, and will take a lot of time, but it doesn't, I'm not saying it's not relevant, but it's a really big ticketed item, but that's all part of that explore.
But we got to stand for something sometime.
Okay, well, that's what I'm
Amen.
saying, that's part, so this is kind of starting it down that path. So I'm going back to the motion of these items that Vice Chair Brittany Cummins made the motion on. Any discussion to the motion? Now, this is going to change again next month, but I'm seeing none, so let's vote. All in favor, and this is the list, 1 through 13, that on our priorities to start on bill files. So that's the motion, correct? So everyone has this understanding, okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, voting is unanimous. Thank you. Appreciate the comments, and I do recognize it's getting late. We're good? Okay, Superintendent Dick, I think we're done, right, Angie?
We are.
Okay, the next piece.
Deputy Stallings.
Whoever you
are.
Angie,
Angie, will you stay
yes.
in the Crest store and then just bring up that, thank you.
Yep.
Track. Thanks for that assist.
Okay, we're not going to take action on this, but this is an introduction and kind of pre-grease what you're going to be getting in the future. And next month, this is a very actionable piece right here, so.
Just that I explained to you how we've set up the tracker and why. If some of you have gone through and taken the time to read the actual business cases, I applaud you and congratulate you. So thanks, because I know that some of you did that. So the way this works, we generally put forward a list of business cases. We also are part of the Governor's Budgetary Act, and so we turn these items into him. And then oftentimes what happens is a prioritization, and this kind of ebbs and flows, but we always try to get ahead of this for you, and this year I think we've done a good job of getting it out here early. One of the conversations that we've been having amongst ourselves is how can we help you prioritize? And we also talked with Ben Leishman, a legislative analyst, to ask his direction about how we can help the legislative process along, as well as the Governor's Budgetary Act. And we determined that these three areas where there are X's might be helpful. So you can see that we've marked whether it's part of the strategic plan initiatives, and that would mean instead of just being loosely connected to one of the four goals, it's actually a strategy that can move your goals forward. There's leverage. The second one is essential for program maintenance, and then the third is an expansion of a program or a new program. So let me give you, I'll share some examples. If you look at strategic plan advancement, we have a Utah School Leadership Initiative business case. And this is something that is new, and it's a very explicit strategy in your strategic plan. So you see there's an X under strategic plan initiative and under a new program. And then if you clicked on the blue lettering for Utah School Leadership Initiative, you'd see the full business case. Okay? Now, if you look at essential program maintenance and we look at optional enhanced kindergarten, currently there's some TANF funding, and that funding has gone away. So to maintain current levels in OEK, we're not talking about adding new necessarily, but just current funding levels, you would need to add some to that pot, or not all schools would be able to offer what they're currently offering. And then you can see we've listed some expansion or new of things that come up quite frequently, like Beverly Taylor Sorensen or dual language immersion, as those programs continue to grow, where there's an ask for expanding the program. So that's the way we've set up the tracker. We hope that, given the homework assignment that Chair Huntsman just laid out, that you'll take time to look at the business cases over the next month. And then if you have questions as you look at these business cases, there is a contact person that you can get in touch with directly, or please reach out to any of the superintendency and we can navigate that for you. That's it, unless there are any questions.
I think there's a few. Board member,
Scott, I think he mentioned that there was an issue.
Some of them work, some of them.
If there is an issue with the hyperlink, I think Deputy Jones indicated he was going to send you an email with links that would work to each of them. We've made some additions right at the end, and I think he said he was having problems with they all worked a couple of days ago, and then something happened today. I'm not sure what it was, so he'll forward those to you.
well, and we want, I think it's important that we route those through Miss Lorraine also,
Route the questions or the hyperlinks? What do you?
the hyperlinks. Scott's going to be sending, Deputy Superintendent Jones is going to be, yes.
So they'll come from Lorraine rather than from Scott?
Yes, let's get them to there, and then we can track all of that
Okay.
stuff a lot better than, and so if people have a problem opening or having a problem, Miss Lorraine will fix that. Sure. A couple questions, Superintendent,
Yes.
before we go. Board Member Belknap?
Superintendent, on the Beverly Taylor Sorensen, I'm trying to figure this out, and maybe it's because the numbers are the same that it's giving me a conundrum, but it's asking for the exact same amount new as what they have. Is that really what they're asking?
Or is it one time turning to ongoing?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
It's already ongoing. It said yes. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do, and my system is not allowing me now to even click on it, so I
Okay,
apologize.
so
But
just,
they haven't come to us to ask for anything either, so I don't sure.
so I just need a little clarity later. Thank you.
In other words, is a case being submitted for something that's really already an ongoing
And
program?
it's the exact same amount, so I'm wondering where it is.
We'll get that clarified.
Thank you.
Okay. Board Member Hanson?
Sid, the OEK money, has it been given out in grants? How has that been distributed?
There is an application for OEK participation.
And have we been able to fully fund that for everybody who wants it? Or are there
I
more
don't think
people out
we've
there
had.
who want to do it?
We have not had full funding, for sure. And each year we've asked for more because we've had more requests.
Okay.
So you may actually make a good point, if I may, Chair.
Yeah.
So for the OEK, that is making up the difference where we would be missing out on TANF, plus additional to fund those who have asked. And I think that's broken down in the case.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for Superintendent for doing, Deputy Superintendent Scott Jones briefing on what to expect. Okay, moving right along, board members. I'm seeking a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing pending or reasonable imminent litigation. I have a second? Okay, this will be a roll call vote. We'll start with Board Member Gravitt.
Yes.
Yes, we're in executive session. It'll take a minute to turn something